Even now, after so many years, the rumble of trains still takes Bud Snidow back in time. Hereford cattle, sheep, and hogs streamed into terminal markets in Denver, Omaha, Chicago, and Kansas City. Loaded off of boxcars, they spilled into pens, where they were sold by the thousands to farmer feeders or directly to packers. Stockyards, which hummed with the energy of capitalism, sharpened the industry's focus, and cattle producers, for centuries simply subsistence growers, suddenly shifted their energy toward raising beef on an industrial scale. It was a pivotal time in history. Born in 1917 in West Virginia, Berman Cephas Snidow witnessed many of the pivotal events of the 20th century. His nickname, Bud, came from a tune sung by soldiers returning from World War I. Bud's father was a painter and a forester. His family owned a small farm on the outskirts of Princeton, where he cut his teeth milking cows, splitting wood, and dreaming of life on the other side of the ridge. The Snidows weathered the Great Depression, and Bud graduated from Virginia Polytechnic Institute in animal husbandry in 1940. He landed his first job with a magazine called Virginia Breeder, where he gained expertise in business and advertising and learned the ins and outs of livestock merchandising. When the Second World War broke out, Bud was called into service. He became an Army Air Force mechanic and was stationed in Alaska for much of the time. Bud's thoughts never strayed far from the pasture, however, and when peace came to America, he returned to his job in Virginia. There, he met his wife Hilda Brown and married her in 1951. In post-war America, life was good for the Snidows. He accepted a position with the American Hereford Association, serving as a field rep from South Carolina to Maine in 1949.
This opening came up as a field representative for the Hereford Association in the eastern area that I was acquainted with. And fortunately, the man that was as the boss, or one of the bosses in the Hereford Association, was Paul Swapper, who was my old professor at VPI and also our judging team coach. So he and I had become pretty good friends after college work, and because he left the teaching division and went into the extension service as a state beef cattle specialist. And so he knew who I was and I knew him, so I knew that I would be getting into the right people, and it all worked itself out pretty well. And I remember when I signed on with the Hereford Association, I said, no, actually I think I'd like to give this job maybe 10 years. And then I probably ought to be doing something different. And I'm doing something different, all right, but it's 32 years later.
He quickly distinguished himself and was offered a position at AHA's headquarters, supervising the association's registry. He later oversaw the activities of AHA's field staff. The Hereford business was strong and getting stronger. Bud became instrumental in developing export markets for U.S. Hereford genetics around the globe.
We developed quite a foreign market for our American breeding stock, which meant export of American breeding stock to Mexico. Particularly was the biggest out of the country buyer that we had. We were doing business with Canada for years, but that trade was both ways. We bought Canadian bulls, the Canadians bought Hereford bulls, back and forth. So we ended up in exporting to South America, which had been primarily a customer of England.
In 1961, he became AHA's Assistant Secretary, a position he held until his retirement in 1983. Today, Bud continues to serve the Hereford breed on a volunteer basis, conducting tours of the headquarters office and providing wisdom of decades of experience to breeders and staff alike. He is the breed's preeminent historian. He expresses his recollections through written words, stories, and with paint and canvas. His paintings are an expression of a rich and significant history that reshaped America for good.